Folks, today we're going to talk Chapter 7, Supporting Your Ideas. This chapter is all about looking at evidence and avoiding plagiarism. And we'll do that by combining multiple forms of evidence to support your ideas. We'll be able to understand different library sources and distinguish between the types of information found there. We'll also be able to evaluate source credibility and appropriateness for your speech and explain plagiarism and implement strategies to avoid it. So let's dig in here. There's some really big questions that you should be asking yourself when it comes to research and doing credible research. So first is, what do you want your audience to know? When you're crafting a message, you want to start with, what is your objective or goal? And then your follow-up question would be, how do you establish your credibility with that goal in mind? Remember, credibility is a combination of personal knowledge, library resources, and reliable internet searches. So there are professional and personal knowledge bases. You want to draw on your own experiences to enhance your message. When you're selecting or talking about something, it should be something of value to you or something that you have a personal connection with. So explaining that personal connection is incredibly powerful. Personal testimony allows us to share powerful stories. It allows us to practice the story to ensure that it's timely and to the point and meets the overall goal or objective of our speech. And you can also use your witness, like your personal story, if you don't have that experience. So for example, interviews are a great way to gather personal information that isn't your own. Now, when it comes to interviews, you want to make sure that you establish a goal for the interview and the conversation. You want the person that you're interviewing to understand that you're using that information for a speech and for a specific purpose. You want to be very considerate when you are interviewing someone. Take notes and work to incorporate what you've learned. And always, always cite your sources. Now, aside from personal information, there's that professional information as well, and often that's found at the library. Now, something that people often don't do anymore is physically go to the library. By being in a library, you're able to gather a lot of different types of information. You're also able to use the librarian as a resource. Librarians, that is their job, to help you find credible information and to help you accomplish your goals. So if you are really stuck, go to your local library or go to the college library to gather information. At the library, you've got lots of different resources. There are books, which are great for in-depth research. Books can sometimes take a lot of time to read and sift through, so that might not be the first place you want to look if you're doing something on a shorter term or a much more concise research project. Periodicals, on the other hand, contain a lot of up-to-date information. Books are published and then they sit on the shelf. Periodicals can be updated and adapted over time, and they also come out really quickly. Periodicals include magazines, newspapers, journals, and other publications. There are full text databases that can be accessed as well in conjunction with those periodicals. EBSCO is typically the most comprehensive. Once you get to EBSCO, which is available at many public libraries as well as university libraries, it feels a lot like Google. You're able to enter information, you're able to use keywords, and EBSCO can be very comprehensive when it comes to looking for credible research that is up to date for your speech. Now, when it comes to search engines like Google, that's great for fast information, but it's so important that you evaluate your sources for reliability. You want to avoid ads and sponsored links. Anything that's there to gather money or used as clickbait is not a great source for your research speech. Now, here are some internet domains to trust, from most reliable to least reliable. .edu is often education-based sites. There's a lot of research and universities affiliated with these sources, and .gov is what's coming from the government. So those two sources typically are the most vetted. However, there are blogs that are associated with .edu and .gov sites that should not be utilized in a persuasive or an informative research speech. .org is going to be affiliated with organizations. Typically, if you're doing any sort of research on the medical field or into public service of any kind, .org sites are going to be large organizations that specialize in certain areas of information and can be pretty reliable. .com stands for commercial, so a lot of news affiliates are .com websites. Those are good places to look, but you want to be very careful. We know that news outlets can have biases or certain perspectives or lean in a certain political way, so you want to stick to .com websites that are more neutralized. Also, .net is network infrastructures, and these are typically self-bought. They're usually affiliated with blogs and things like that. .net is definitely one of the website URLs, domains to avoid. Now, you want to make sure that you read the URL carefully, examine the content of the website, ask or know who the author is, and then look at the links that are associated with it. If you see a website that has a lot of research or a works cited at the bottom, you can trust that it's going to be more reliable than not. Now, when you evaluate your information, there's some keywords from this chapter that I want you to be aware of. Source credibility is signs that a person is offering trustworthy information. Parity is similarity of information across multiple sources, so you see that sources are corroborated. And then biases, these are the predispositions towards a particular viewpoint. Now, we've talked about biases with the media news outlet. There are definitely some things to be aware of. Now, why do we evaluate our sources? Well, the world is full of lots of information, but not all of it is valid, useful, or accurate. So you want to make sure you evaluate your sources that you use, and that's an important part of the research process. Now, you can evaluate credibility for a series of different topics. So credibility is defined as the quality or power of inspiring belief. Credible sources must be reliable, and they're reliable typically if they're current or the most current information, especially in the medical field. You want to make sure that things have a recency to them. They should be relevant to your topic. You should definitely know who the author is, or if it's an organization, have a great understanding of that organization and their reputation. You also want to make sure that there's accurate information and that it's purposeful for the use of having that key unbiased information. Now, there's some questions that you can ask yourself about online sites. Is this a database or a site recommended by the library? If it's yes, you know you're green for go. If it's a blog or a homepage owned by an individual person, that would be a red flag, and that would be a reason not to use a source. Also, if it's a wiki where multiple people can contribute, you definitely want to avoid that source as well. While sources like Wikipedia have actually proven to be pretty reliable, at any given time, a wiki can be edited and can be inaccurate or unreliable. Then, is it an online periodical or a print publication that has just been put online? These are great resources that can allow you to access information from a variety of credible sources. So, something else to think about if you are doing a search, particularly on a website such as Google, you want to define your search terms. You want to know specifically what you're working for and use words that are going to help you to find the best information. Consider using synonyms or looking at a variety of information. You want to expand or limit your search so you can use the and or the or, not. These key terms are so helpful. Putting something in direct quotes means that it is going to limit that quote for that specific phrase. And again, if using Google, you could consider using Google Scholar or Google Books to find more reputable information. Now, when it comes to Google Images and Google in general, you can look for the specific criteria, such as searching by usage rights. You can search by size, time, the date of information. Strict filtering can filter out explicit videos or content. Moderate filtering excludes explicit videos but might link to some explicit content. And then no filtering turns off that safe search. So you want to be aware of your filters and the different search terms that you can use. When it comes to avoiding plagiarism, in any of your courses, you're going to have to cite your sources. In this class, we use MLA citations, but APA and the Chicago style are very common as well. Plagiarism is the act of presenting someone else's work as your own. And oftentimes it occurs by mistake. So being empowered with knowing what plagiarism is can really help you with that. So you want to make sure you set your sources aloud to give credit where credit is due. Now, here is a little guide of your plagiarist if. If you copy and paste information or retype it, that's plagiarism. If you submit work that is not your own, also plagiarism. If you take all your ideas from one source but don't cite the source, plagiarism. You don't use quotation marks or cite it properly, that incorrect citation is plagiarism. You copy the majority of text but change just a few words, still plagiarism. So what is the definition of those different types of plagiarism? Or how can we avoid it? Well, first, if you're citing your source out loud, you want to make sure you cite the author's name, the article, the journal, or the study, or wherever it came from, and then the publication date. Without that information, that's an incomplete citation and could be deemed plagiarism. There are a bunch of different ways that you could cite your sources according to. In the text, the author states, as explained by. Using some of these phrases can add a little variety and make your citations more fluid in your speech. Now, what exactly is plagiarism? Well, one is global plagiarism, which is stealing from a single source, copying off your neighbor's work and passing it off on as your own. Patchwork plagiarism is a little more difficult to detect, but still occurs. And when you're using online platforms such as Canvas, all of this plagiarism is so easily detected. Patchwork plagiarism is stealing ideas or language from 2 or 3 sources, kind of quilting them together and passing it off as your own. And finally, incremental plagiarism is failing to give credit for parts that are borrowed from other sources, so kind of that copy-paste, but just in small doses. And the internet, when you Control-C and copy and paste, you want to be very careful. Make sure you take careful notes and cite your sources as you go. Now, here are some examples of verbal citations that you can use from your book. And remember, according to Herman Melville, a famous writer, it is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation. Make sure you are citing your sources and producing amazing work from your own ideas or with a couple of citations.